Okay, well, hello everybody and welcome to the NSCAA Women Coach Educators live chat. My name is Colette Montgomery and I'm going to be facilitating today's discussion. I'm the Director of Coaching for the Dina Soccer Club, a youth soccer organization based in Minnesota. We have an amazing lineup of guests with us today, so let's just take a little bit of time to find out who they are, starting with Dina, then we'll go to Rachel and then to Corey. Dina.
Great. Dina Gentile. I am with a club in Massachusetts, Benfica, USA. I am the girls program director and assistant director of coaching, and I oversee the girls programming. Along with that, I'm also a coach in my hometown of Wilmington, Massachusetts, coaching my daughter and son's team. So I have a foot in the club program, youth program, and I'm a former collegiate coach, and I'm still at that college, Endicott College, teaching, no longer coaching at the college level.
Hi, I'm Rachel Stark. I am an assistant director of membership communications for the NCAA, and I'm an assistant editor of Champion, which is the NCAA's quarterly magazine. So a few months ago, I got to explore this issue we're going to be discussing today about where are the female coaches at the college level in a story for Champion. And so I had the opportunity to talk with many great college coaches of various sports and experts in this field, administrators at the college level as well. And while I'm not a coach myself, I'm looking forward to sharing some of those insights here today in this conversation. And also a quick side note I just wanted to add, I'm here on site for the NCAA Inclusion Forum, which is going to be taken off here in a couple of days. And so that event brings together all sorts of college leaders and student athletes to talk about issues around diversity and inclusion. And that is definitely going to be including this topic as well. So looking forward to continuing that conversation here in a couple of days as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. I'm Corey Holton. I'm the head women's soccer coach at Vassar College in New York. I am a former college athlete. Been in the college game for 11 years, 7 of them as a head coach, and I've worked at the Division I level and at the youth level as well as the Division III level.
Fantastic. All right, well, our topic today is actually posed as a question. Where are all the female coaches? And obviously we found a couple of them here today to interview. But before we go any further, I just want to give our audience a little bit of information just to say that we've got really a couple of aims today. The first one is that if you are a female coach, we really just wanted to remind you that you are having an impact and an influence far beyond probably what you can even imagine. The second thing is that if you're either a male coach or a female coach, a club director, an athletic director, or even a parent today, you're going to hear some of the how-tos in recruiting and mentoring female coaches, some of the benefits and challenges of retaining, some of the barriers that are there, maybe even for females to advance. And then the third thing really is that if you're watching and you're not coaching yet, we'd really like to help you on that pathway to get involved and hopefully point you in the right direction. As we go through the chat today, if you have any specific questions, you can go ahead and actually comment on our YouTube channel right in the comments page there, or you can tweet at NSCAA using the hashtag women coaches. So let's get going with our chat here. We're going to start with Rachel. So yeah, just as you mentioned, you wrote this article, Where Are the Women? And for the NCAA Champion magazine. So Rachel, what is the data telling us and why has there been a decline?
Yeah, so I can speak to the data at the college level. So right now, around 40% of women's teams in the NCAA are coached by female. And that number has been pretty stagnant here over the last several years. But if you take a step back and zoom out a little bit over the course of several decades, which is something that 2 researchers, R. Vivian Acosta and Linda Carpenter, actually did in a longitudinal study over the course of, I believe, 37 years, you can see that there's been a pretty steady decline in the percentages of female head coaches in the NCAA. And so if you look back before Title IX was passed in 1972, that number was actually closer to more than 90% of women's teams then were coached by female. So it was, at that point in time, it was a lot of volunteer physical education teachers who are doing it for free. And then that number has continued to decline over the following decades. And another data point would be 1981, which is when the NCAA started sponsoring women's championships. So that it was around 55% then. And then, as I mentioned today, it's closer to around 40%. Also, I wanted to note that it's surprising, even more surprising when you think of that data, when you consider the growth in popularity and participation among female student athletes in women's sports. And so over the last 10 years or so, there's been a steady increase in female student athlete participation in the NCAA. So that increase has been around 25%. So very, great news there. Also, the number of women's teams in the NCAA has increased by around 14% around that same window. So, it's really interesting, and it's a complicated topic to look into of why this decline is happening among the coaches when the pool of student athletes is bigger than ever.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's great to know kind of where we've been, where we're going as well with that. So thank you for sharing that. Dina, do you have any other thoughts? Just, obviously Rachel's touched a little bit on the collegiate side of it. What do you see in the youth ranks?
Sure. I mean, unfortunately, we're not collecting enough data at the club level to give a good picture of what we're seeing in terms of women in leadership positions. But anecdotally, when you're at a field or a tournament and you're looking around and you're seeing the head coaches and assistant coaches of these club teams, women are in the minority still. The club I work for is Benfica USA, and I'll talk a little bit more about the strategies that we've implemented to ensure that we do have female representation with our girls programs. But one source that I do have, U.S. Youth Soccer reported in 2016 out of 300,000 youth coaches, only 20% of those were females, and that's an issue. The way I try to look at it as, well, now it's our job as those who have made it into coaching and have made a career out of it to start a movement and create some deliberate action to ensure that we encourage young people who are playing the college game to enter into coaching, club, youth, or college. The problem is that it's one pool that we're all trying to pick from. And unfortunately, there's only so many female coaches or females who are willing to kind of enter this domain. But there are a lot of good research that's being conducted. The Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport have a listing of policy recommendations at the youth level. So this could be town or travel programs, just simple strategies on how to get more women involved, more mothers involved. And let's not forget, a lot of parents today have played college soccer, and a lot of those are moms. And we need to tap into that great resource and find ways and strategies to encourage them to get involved with their children's program, and then even at the club level.
Yeah, great, awesome, great synopsis there. So obviously we'll just move the conversation along in a little bit and come up with some of these strategies that you've spoken about. Corey, would you like to just talk a little bit about, as a female, like, how did you get into coaching? Maybe we can hear that from Corey and Dina. So Dina, feel free to just piggyback off of Corey. But Corey, how did you get into coaching?
Sure. Well, I was a college player, a Division III college player. I played for a male head coach. Like most of our college kids, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I left. I ended up taking an internship at the ECAC, the Eastern College Athletic Conference, and spent a year working with them sort of on the peripherals of sport, but still involved in the game, not just in soccer, but in all sports, and realized I really liked the idea of being on a college campus and being accessible to student athletes. And my college coach called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I just got a job, come down and work for me." And that's sort of been a lot of how my career has progressed. But I ended up taking a chance, getting paid very little money to go be an assistant coach at a Division III program in North Carolina for my college coach, who had really just taken me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes. And I spent 2 years with him. And he was on one end of the spectrum in terms of the way he coached and the way he was. And he ended up taking another job and asked me to come along. And I actually opted out of going with him because I'd been playing for him and learning under him for many, many years, and decided it would be great to get a new perspective. And I ended up working for another male head coach at the same institution. And he was just the complete opposite. He had 3 kids under the age of, 8 at the time, and another one on the way. And he was just, very different approach, but both were successful. And I figured out, I was somewhere in the middle of that. And it was kind of a blessing to have stayed and on the same institution with a different perspective to just give me an idea of that I could do this. And there were 2 very different ways it could be done, but I was somewhere in the middle and I could figure out a way to make it work for me.
Fantastic.
That's where it started, and then it's just gone from there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always great to hear different people's stories. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. Dina, how about you?
Well, what's interesting is we all seem to be products of male coaches. So it's not a bad thing, and I think I want to make that clear. But we do have to consider the impact that females can have on girls and young women. Well, I grew up on Long Island, New York, so I was really fortunate to be around 2 fantastic coaches, Sue Ryan and Sean Latta. And when I was in high school, my physical education teacher, who also was the boys soccer coach, asked me to join him for camps. And that's where I got addicted to coaching. And I went on to play soccer at Adelphi University. And that's where Sue Ryan really kind of asked me to get involved with their Long Island Select soccer program. And I was hesitant because I was a young, person, and I just wanted to focus on playing. But she added me on as an assistant coach, and the team was fantastic. We traveled to tournaments. They were all very, solid players, and I felt like I was making a contribution. But bigger than that, it's the people that push you to do these things. So Sue Ryan and Sean Latta probably tag teamed me, and Sean coached at Columbia University, and Sue Ryan at Stony Brook University, really kind of pushed me into becoming a graduate assistant somewhere. And I think without that, and I remember the conversation at the Pocono Cup over dinner, pushed me to really consider getting into the college game. And I don't think without their push and their mentoring, I would be where I am today. And I did go on to be a GA at Springfield College for 2 years, which really is a mecca for a lot of coaches of all different sports, and that really propelled me into to applying for head coaching jobs across the country. And I landed at Endicott because it was a program that was just starting up, and also I was able to be involved in the athletic administration plus teaching. So all of that really kind of fell into place. But just like Corey, it really does take that mentor to get you moving in the right direction. And I do sense that the women in the NSCAA are terrific mentors. And that is another strategy also, is that if we can all kind of adopt 2 or 3 young people, we could help them maybe enter the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we all need those people who are going to take us out of what's comfortable and push us into those uncomfortable areas where we may not step, right? So it's good to hear that as we reflect back and be grateful for where we've started and where we're at right now. Okay, well, so the next question that I've got is really a 3-fold question, and I'm going to ask Rachel to lead us off on this. What can we do then to retain coaches? Are there reasons why female coaches are leaving? And then what are some of the barriers that we're seeing, and how can we overcome those barriers?
Yeah, so I think I'll start actually with more of the barriers and some of the challenge that female coaches may be facing from what I've heard and the people that I spoke with. And actually, it's a really complicated topic. I think we all understand that there's no one key factor that you can point to that says this is why women are dropping out of coaching or why they're not getting into it or why we've had this decline over the decades. So I think that is important to remember, that there's all sorts of factors that are weaving into it. And I do also want to offer a little bit of, I think it helps to look at kind of the historical background too a little bit. So, before we talked about Title IX in the early 1970s, when, you know, some of these teams, these women's teams didn't have a lot of resources. They crammed into cars to travel to games, and they had volunteers who were coaching. And then after Title IX passed, there were a lot more resources that were available to these women's teams. And so, you know, in addition to after Title IX, a lot of athletics programs started to combine the men's department with the women's department. And so oftentimes when that happened, there would be one athletic director who was put in charge of it all. And, you know, usually that would be a man. And so currently today, around 20% of athletics directors in the NCAA are female. So it's still heavily, that leadership position is heavily dominated by men as well, which I think is, you know, it's important to keep in mind, and also part of this conversation. And so as women's sports started to become a little bit more opportunities came, you know, more sports were created, more teams were created, you know, it became more lucrative for coaches. And so more men started kind of vying for those positions as well. Now, when I spoke with coaches for my story, I heard all kinds of different factors. Obviously, you know, as Dina mentioned, the mothers who coach that's a huge thing, the strain on working moms, and how do you balance it all? There's no such thing as a work-life balance in the world of coaching, but how do you kind of come to some semblance of something that's healthy and doable? You know, I've heard things about perceived gender biases, struggles around that. There have been studies, Women in Sports Foundation recently did a study on that had some good data that put some, you know, just some legs to that issue as well. I've heard fears and kind of things tied to discrimination around sexual orientation. That has come up a lot in the interviews that I've done. I think female mentors, as the other panelists have also mentioned, that's huge. So again and again in my interviews, I heard that the successful women who are coaching, there was a successful woman before them that made them realize that this was an option, that they could do this. They saw themselves in these coaches, and so that is huge. And encouraging younger women that you see have potential to go for these opportunities. So I'll stop there, but those are some of the key, I think, themes that kept popping up.
Okay, awesome. All right, Dina and Corey, go ahead and.
Sure, I can just chime in from the club perspective. When I started at Benfica, there was one female coach, and when I first got introduced to the club scene, I was just really shopping around for my daughter and just kind of looking at the landscape. And of course, I couldn't stay on the sidelines for too long, so I did ask if I could be part of the program. But one of the things that I really wanted to do was to try to create a program so that we could have more females coaching these girls, and it was a deliberate effort to do so. The only way that we were able to move from one coach to now we have 12 coaches, and we're a smaller club, but some of our teams have 2 coaches that share the responsibility. But the only way we could do that was from the support of the administration, and luckily I obviously work at a college, so I had a pool of players that have worked my camp, so I already knew that there was a lot of talent and passion out there. But now getting them to move from having that mindset of just being a camp coach into being a head coach or a co-coach for a club team definitely took some time. So I'm at the club now 4 years. So when we first started out, one of the things that I needed to do was to help and mentor these newer coaches in terms of setting up practices and understanding the philosophy of the club. So what we did was we had all of the girl coaches and all of the teams at one facility. So we were training basically at the same time, simultaneously. And the practice plans were similar. Of course, we tweaked it a little bit for the age groups, but I was able to walk around and really inject the philosophy of the club, but also model effective coaching. And with that, we built a really strong program in the first year in terms of the female coaches feeling very confident in their abilities because we were all doing the same thing. It was easy to look at the other field and see what others were doing. Before practices, we met. During practices, we shared. After practices, we reflected and figured out ways to make improvements. And over the first month of doing this in the fall season, what happened was these newer coaches felt empowered because now they felt like they had the tools necessary to do this on their own. So I think for clubs that are starting out and trying to get female coaches, you have to make sure it is a deliberate effort and you create a mindful approach to this so that you're instructing the instructor and then providing them the tools to teach the players. And so, going through now, these coaches are seasoned coaches. We have a lot of new female coaches that have coached at the high school level who are part of our program. So they're all great on their own. But the sharing piece has always come up. And so we use our winter training session where they have their own session, but they might stay for the second session and help the other coach. So there's this collaborative effort that just started because of the sharing of that space, which now that we've grown, we really cannot do. But the folks who are still with us have recognized the importance of doing that. So creating that bond is almost like we did create a mentorship within our program of coaches. And I think that's a really good strategy for travel programs, town programs, and club programs to consider for getting more women involved.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback on that. I think what Dina's talking about is the preparation that we give to our female coaches. I think sometimes we're so, we're pushing to have females in the game, but we're not always giving them the resources and the preparation necessary in order for them to be successful. And that's where we see the retention problems is because, we may push a young female coach into the game before they're ready. And then they end up potentially not being successful, and that's when the retention, I think, becomes an issue. And so I think the biggest thing is as we start to develop young coaches is that we do put in a framework for them to be successful, and we do prepare them in a way that allows them to be successful. And obviously, everyone's going to fail, and there's going to be failures, but having sort of this support system that Dina's talking about, but also the preparation that we give them, the collaboration in terms of helping them with sessions and giving them tips and having the evaluation tools in place is getting them ready to take on their own program potentially or to move up the ranks in coaching. And so, the biggest mistake we can make is just to throw a female in to throw a female in. I think what we need to do is make sure they're prepared before we give them that opportunity or encourage them to take that opportunity so that when they do have it, they are successful. And I think that's the biggest thing is as we are developing youth coaches, women's coaches, college coaches, is that we're giving them, the framework and the preparation necessary to be successful.
Yeah.
And could I add a couple of things too on that topic? So Corey mentioned that everybody is going to fail, and that is something that I heard. I spoke with one coach who said, when we do fail, we need to have people who are going to be there to pick us up too, and to give us another chance. And so this one woman I spoke with said, she made a conscious effort to, she called her program the recycling bin. And she made a conscious effort to bring in women who had lost their jobs, but to help them get their confidence back, get back on their feet, keep them busy while they're out for jobs in case, sometimes it takes a while to get back into that cycle. So also helping other women out in that aspect as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it, to create a safe place to fail? Because I think if you ask any successful person how they got there, it was probably through a little bit of failure on the way. And if they don't agree with that, they're probably lying to you. So, but I'm hearing some of the key words here of just being intentional. I think from back to what Dina had said, and then with Corey just reminding us that equipping people to be successful. And yes, there's going to be maybe some stumbling steps in there. But also having the support from the leadership too is key. So as we kind of transition then, now we look at this, okay, we've got some female coaches then. So how do you look at changing then a mindset that's out there? And how do you explain kind of now more the added value of having a female coach, maybe to some of, maybe more in the youth, but for sure in the collegiate game still, with regards to parents? What are some of the challenges and things that we see there?
And I think it's important to sell that you're prepared and that you're a great coach, not just that I'm female, but that I could be successful. And, I don't ever really think of selling a female coach to our parents, but rather a successful adult, a successful person in the profession, but also a great role model for their young person, whether that's a male or a female. To me, that's less important as it is to kind of change the mindset of, hey, it doesn't matter. I'm still really successful in my profession, and I want to be a great role model for your child. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. I never really say, oh, like, come to me because I'm the only female coach you're looking at. But I think that there is something to be said about just being a great professional and a great role model, and using that as our selling point when we're talking to recruits and their families, or to youth players who are looking to come to our institution.
Yeah, great.
Sure,
go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I think also, again, parents are soccer savvy. They might not be accustomed to women coaching their children. And sometimes I even get this from officials, that if, I'm standing next to a male coach, they'll go over to that coach, assuming that they are, the head coach of the team. And part of my role really is to educate the official at that point, just to let them know that, hey, don't assume just because of the gender that, this person is the head coach and I'm not, to the point where now all the officials come up to me, whether I'm coaching or not, just to ask, so that we don't have to have that conversation. But in terms of parents, they're taking the same coaching courses that, club coaches are taking and college coaches are taking. So they know the X's and O's of the game. But for me, having females at the club level is a value added, because when you go to a tryout and you do see 12, 15 female coaches on the sidelines, and you go to another club and they don't have that, to me, it is very much a selling point. But to Corey's point, of course, we need the qualifications. Of course, we need to make sure that they're equipped with the knowledge to do so. But again, parents are accustomed to what they know, what they've experienced, and sometimes it is a little bit about education. But for the most part, I've always heard positive things about, isn't it great that there's so many females at your club? Isn't it great that they're speaking about the college game to these club players? And I think it is really important when a young player can see themselves in their head coach. And it's not that they can't get that from a male coach, but to see a female that is in a power position and has authority and can really communicate, I think that really helps to create and empower young people to go on and fulfill their own careers. It's just something that is a value added for our club, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, let's switch gears a little bit and go to some adversity factors. So how do you see, or even for yourself, how have you dealt with adversity as a female coach, or how have you encouraged others in your environments then to deal with that adversity?
I think it's really important to just surround yourself with good people, and people that support you regardless of anything, really. Is making sure you have the support system in place, that you can kind of talk through some of that adversity and deal with it with people that you trust and who know you.
Yeah, I agree with Corey, because I looked up the word adversity as we were talking about what we were going to discuss, and really opposite of that is courage, right? And in order to have courage to speak out, to speak to that official that kind of discarded you, right? To speak to that parent that might not understand the value of a female coach, you need to have courage. The only way you have courage is if you know there's a support system around you. And I think that the younger female coaches, when they see another female who is a director of coaching, is a program director, be an advocate, it empowers them to also speak up and be an advocate. So that link between experienced coaches and younger coaches has to be there, and that's why having these sessions like this are so important.
Yeah. So with that, then, if there's anybody that's watching right now that isn't coaching, what advice would you give to somebody who's watching today that would be interested in coaching? Rachel, you want to start us off?
Sure. So again, I'll speak to what I heard from the coaches, since I'm not a coach myself, but I spoke with one woman who she made a really powerful point about the importance of not letting other people define your path. So she got into coaching at a young age, became a single mother shortly thereafter, and faced a lot of questions about, can you do this? Can you be a coach and also be a mother, a single mother? And how are you going to balance it all? And she was shocked by all the questions that she received, but she was also determined that she was going to do it, and she has been very successful at that. So she talked a little bit about some of the things that she learned along the way, ways that she would approach interviews, for instance, what kinds of questions she should ask maybe the lead, the main hiring person, versus maybe some other questions that you should save for members of the community, or other steps of the interview. Just being very calculated when you step into that to that's what she found to work. And that's not to say that everybody needs to approach it that way, but she just didn't want anyone to judge her before they met her, and that was really important to her. So she even said, she was kind of embarrassed to admit this, but she took off the personal information out of her bio online for that very reason. So just that was her personal experience, and obviously it varies from person to person. But I think the main takeaway from that is just, don't be afraid to make your own path. And if it's something that you really want to do, you can find a way to do it. And don't be shy about reaching out to others. Even if you don't know them, a female coach that you look up to, reach out to them. And most of the time people are really willing to help.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I also think females really do need to engage more in the coaching courses to get those credentials. And Corey would know this too. When you sign up for a coaching course, usually females have the bathroom to themselves, because there's just not a high mass of females signing up for these courses, and that is certainly changing, which is terrific. But I think getting those credentials will really help entry-level coaches get that first opportunity. But it also gives you a sense of knowledge. It gives you a sense of confidence when you've gone through these courses. You get feedback, and you put yourself out there. And I think a lot of females are afraid of that criticism or feedback, because they take it as such a negative, versus looking at it as, this is going to help me grow and develop. So for me, when I am, mentoring the club coaches, one thing I say to them is, we're going to be honest with you so that we can help you improve. But we do it on the men's side, along with the women's side. But having a personality where you can appreciate that the feedback will get you to the next level, I think that's really an important piece to the puzzle as well. Myself included. If someone gives me feedback after a game, so another coach, I'm going to take it and reflect upon it and make those changes. So I think for those coaches who are nervous about getting into coaching, travel, high school, college, club, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And there's not a one-size-fits-all coaching style. You can make it your own. Most of us coach the way we've been coached and learn from that, and then change as we evolve in the profession. But I just think we need a lot more unique people out there coaching and teaching our young players.
I'd echo that. I think the courses are important for a lot of reasons, but also just for the reason that you're going to meet some other people and who are passionate about the game and who are interested in development of themselves and other people in the game. Connecting with others who are in the field is a really important piece. I mean, that's how I got my start, and that's how I got a lot of the opportunities that I've been afforded in the last 11 years of coaching is really knowing other people in the business and being able to use them as resources. So for anybody who is out there who needs that, reach out. I for one am more than happy to chat with young coaches and or any coach for that matter, and bounce ideas and do X's and O's, or just talk about an issue that we're having with our teams. I think there are a lot of people who are willing to do that, but you have to ask and you have to reach out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Great advice there. So what are some of the challenges of recruiting and retaining and mentoring female coaches then? What do we see there?
I think for me, it goes back to that preparation piece. And when I have a young coach, my assistant's actually sitting in the office right now. She's doing some work, but I allow her to have a lot of influence and a lot of responsibility in a lot of different areas of what we're doing. And the reason is that I need her to be prepared, for the time that whenever the time does come where she's going to move on. I want her to be ready for whatever the next step is, whether that's to be a head coach or to be an assistant at a different level, or to take on a youth program. The idea is that we're getting her involved, and this is the way I was trained, and this is, that's part of it. But, I think what's important is that she's got her hand in a lot of different areas of what we're doing. So she's not going to be surprised when she gets in that situation that when she's a head coach and she's on her own, she's maybe have seen that in the office, or she's seen that in an email exchange with a parent, or a one-on-one meeting with a player, or simply had a breakdown of defense, and giving her those opportunities to learn and grow, I think is what we need to do for our younger coaches in order to retain them and help them move on and continue to build the pool of quality female coaches that are out there.
Yeah.
And I agree with Corey too, in terms of, I'm hearing an echo, I don't know if you are, but in terms of preparation is very important. But also, one thing that has worked for us at Benfica is we sit on the bench with the other coaches. And so there is an exchange going on in terms of coaching in the game, which seems to be a weakness across the board for men and women. So that coaching in the game aspect and being able to collaborate really equips them. So when other people are on their own, they're probably doing the same thing with their assistant coaches, just having that exchange. What do you see? How do we fix this problem? And that stems from the coaching courses that we all take, and just to continue with what we're learning and just improving what we're doing in terms of instruction, and that just enhances the player development as well. But it's that sharing aspect that has to always come into play. I also think a lot of young people don't want to get into coaching because they're afraid to put themselves out there. And that's where, when they see more females, I do think that will be a kind of lower on the aspect of why they would not want to get involved. So I think the visibility piece, having more females out there, will encourage others to understand that, yes, I can do that as well.
You actually hear me? There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that, I think between Dina and Corey, both what you've said there is some advice that I was given in my kind of leadership development, was to always bring somebody with you wherever you're going, whether it's a meeting or it's a session, bring somebody else with you. And I feel like that's really what you're kind of reflecting there, Corey, is to, your job is to launch people out from underneath you, right? And send them into the industry and kind of grow that. So I think that's really helpful. So thanks for sharing there, Dina, as well. So just the last question here, as we kind of going to start wrapping up a little bit. I think we all know that there's coaches out there right now that are probably sitting, watching, thinking that tomorrow is the day that they're going to hand in their resignation. So what advice would you give to somebody right now that's considering that, especially a female coach that's just sitting at home right now just saying, I just can't do it, or for whatever reason it is, I know there's lots of different reasons out there. What advice would you give?
Say, call me. I think that's the biggest thing, is that talk it out with someone who's in their situation, who's been probably where you are. We've all been there. There are highs and lows in coaching, just like in the game. And I think, reaching out to someone who's been in your situation, who can kind of talk through some things, and maybe it's as simple as, hey, let's make this change, or maybe it's time to start looking for a new job, or maybe you could get involved in this way, or here's some advice on how to balance, your life with this profession. But get in touch with somebody and chat about it, and don't just try to rely on yourself to figure it out on your own, because we've all been there.
Yeah, and I would say you're valuable, so please don't leave the profession or the position. Many times administrators will be flexible with your time, maybe even adding a co-coach. It's something that's a strategy that we've used, because people change jobs, but we still want them on board. So having that conversation with the administration, I think, is essential as well. But also just think about why you got involved with coaching. It's to give back. I mean, soccer has been great to all of us here. So dedicating yourself to the game, it takes a commitment, but I think being flexible on both ends really helps, because what you're doing is really, you're creating change. The more female coaches we have, the more change we will have in this game for the positive.
Yeah, and Rachel, do you have any thoughts on that?
I was going to say both Corey and Dina hit it on the head. Talk it through, talk it over with your administrators, and I would thank them for the great influence they have already had. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Emily, I just wanted to check in with you. Do we have any questions that have come in from the audience today?
Yes, we have a few. Ralph Rinaldi has logged on. He had two great questions. Firstly, he says, my girls' only town club has less than 20% female coaches, and the board is dominated by men. What arguments would you make to a board like that regarding why recruiting female coaches is important?
All right, who wants to take that one on?
I think we need to cite the sources on this, and I think that's the power. I mean, just going to the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport, there's a list of policy recommendations for travel programs and youth programs, in terms of the board making a commitment of allocating, 25% of people on the board, or 25% of the coaches are female. And again, this has to be a deliberate and intentional approach to the recruitment, and then the retention of women in the game. So it does have to come from the administration. And yes, you're going to have pushback, but that's the only way change will occur.
Yeah, any thoughts from Rachel or Corey to add on to that one?
I think just citing the importance of having female role models in positions of power, and speaking to them as probably they're all parents. Most of them are most likely parents that potentially have daughters on this town club. Having that conversation about the importance of having female role models that they can see themselves in. It's just something that, again, just a reminder. I don't think that's, again, I go with Dina in terms of going back to that intentional approach, and there's going to be pushback and it's going to take time, but making sure that you let them know the whys too.
Right, and I would just add too, I mean, research shows that in any field, having diversity is highly valuable. So it's important to have diverse people, whether you're going to be in an office, in business, or you're working in an athletics department. So all sorts of different people bring different things to the table, obviously, and women have different skills and insights that they can bring. So that's important to remember as well.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add on that too, with the diverse group. You know, with a diverse group, you're going to get different opinions, and that's really what boards should be doing. They should be really challenging the status quo of what we're doing, why we're doing it. Should we change it? Why not? Should we? And you know, I think Missy Price has been quoted as saying that if you can't see her, you can't be her. So I think that we've got to get some of those things where we're elevating women into these roles that they're very capable of, and they've got a very good support system to make them successful. So a diverse board, a diverse coaching staff is the best coaching staff. I think we can all agree with that. So thank you, Ralph. That's a great question. And why don't you give us an email at some point to let us know how you're doing with that? We'd love to have some follow up with the changes that you're making in your local community. Emily, are there any other questions? Maybe one more?
Yeah, no, of course, I think it's a great one to wrap up on. Miss Nancy Feldman has submitted a question. She asks, or she says, there are so many benefits of career in coaching. What are they from your points of view?
I'll start. Nancy is someone that I've had the pleasure of looking up to and being mentored by. So, you know, I think there's those relationships that we build as coaches to coaches. That's a benefit of being in this wonderful profession. But also, you know, what happens long after a player leaves our program, whether that is, you know, 2 years down the road where they call you up and ask for help because they're having an issue at work and they're not exactly sure what to do next, or when they call to let you know that they're having a baby or getting married, or got a promotion. You know, I think those are the most you know, beneficial parts of being a college coach, and a coach in general, is just seeing the relationship, building the relationship that you have with your players, and certainly what happens across the course of their lifetime, not just in the 4 years or the 2 years that you spend with them.
And Nancy has also had an influence on me as well. So, and that speaks to her reach in terms of mentoring many of us. So thank you, Nancy. But I mean, the greatest thing after being called mom is to be called coach. I mean, it's just a fantastic way to be greeted, you know, hi coach or coach. It's just fantastic. And I think for me, just giving back and seeing the player development, seeing the smiles on the faces of these girls who are training so hard and achieving things that they never thought they could achieve. You know, we're in the people business, and the relationships we make will stay with us forever, as Corey indicated.
Yeah.
It's also a lot of fun. You know, I think that's, you know, we get to be around the game that we love all the time, and share that love with other people. That's it. I love coming to work every day, so you can't beat that.
No, that's awesome. Good. Rachel, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I would just say that from my experience as an athlete, I look up to my coaches so much. I still keep in touch with them. They are some of the biggest role models of my life. So I'm thankful for all the coaches that have had an impact on me. And I think that's, I'm sure that is just, from everyone I've talked to, it's such a rewarding career.
Yeah, awesome. Well, great. Thank you, Nancy Feldman, for that question. I have to say, every week I feel like your coaching tree just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So you've got to reach beyond what I think you even know. All right, well, we're going to start wrapping up here. I just wanted to highlight a few of the national organizations and some of the things that might be going on a year-round basis for those who want to plug in a little bit more. Obviously, we do have the NCAA membership and coach education. Emily Birds, who's on with us right now, is our 30 under 30 coordinator. We'd love for you, if you're watching, to recommend some of the young female coaches out there for that program. We also have the convention, the Women's Committee, together with the Alliance of Women Coaches, host a breakfast, and then there's also a women's social event. The next convention will be in Philadelphia in 2018, so we'd love to connect with you there. There's also, through the Alliance of Women Coaches, the NCAA Coaches Academy and some of their regional workshops. And then I think Dina mentioned too, the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport. They have an annual women's conference. It's actually this Friday. The tickets are sold out, so you're not going to be able to get in for this year, but I'd go ahead and book the ticket for next year for sure. And then also there's the Positive Coaching Alliance. So there's lots of organizations out there that are willing to support you, to give you the resources that you need. And so I just want to say a massive thank you to our panelists. I've really enjoyed this time that we've had for the viewers. And I do have to just give a massive shout out to Emily Bird with the NCAA, who's been our technical and behind the scenes support today. Emily, you have skills that nobody else knows about. So thank you. Without you, this could never have happened. And then just a reminder, we'd also like to invite you to the next event, the NCAA Women Coach Educators live chat on May 17, where the topic will be building a program. And you'll be able to there hear and listen to a discussion around the focus on building a program, whether it's are you building the culture, are you building the winning or the development, and that chat will be hosted by our very own Samantha Snow. So thanks again for today. Dina, Corey, Rachel, thank you so much, and have a great day and a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.